And welcome everyone to another fun and exciting adventure on Riding Through the Unknown. I'm your host, Michael, and tonight's guest, or I say tonight's guest, it's the afternoon. This afternoon's guest, I should say, is a guest you may recognize from being on the energy that surrounds us, and I am grateful to have her on this show as well. She's an amazing guest. You guys are in for a treat with what she is bringing to the show today. And I've already experienced a glitch in the matrix today. Um, so I'm going to hand it off to her before any more glitches start messing with me and I get more confused. So I'm going to allow my guest to introduce herself to you all who may not be familiar with her. The one, the only, channeling, spiritual, mystical, extraordinaire, and so much more, Phaedra Jade Star.
Hi! Oh wow! Talk about glitches. I already had my glitch today too, with the microphone and the video, and so much is going on right now. I think in the universe, so many things are folding in and changing and shifting that we can't help be affected. So my space has been energy for a long time, and it wasn't until later. When I started picking up things like meditation, that I realized there is a deeper resonance, like there's a deeper way to go in. So, and that just like moved through the rest of my work too, the healing practices of Reiki and stuff like that. So, I mean, today we're going to do that deep dive into what it's like to be an open channel and to be in a space to receive, because a lot of us can do that. I think most of us think that we can't tap in or we don't know how. So, maybe we'll offer a little tips and tricks today. I say that lightly, tricks on how to open and try to evolve, and so that you can experience that too. How's that sound?
Yes, and that sounds amazing. And I think it'll be helpful for a lot of people because I think people look at channelers and are like, oh, I could never do that. Wow, that I'm not even sure how they're able to do that. And so I think if they had an understanding of it, more people may be able to tap into it.
I agree. Oh yeah, oh yeah, and I don't think it's as hard as people think, because when you're expanding your consciousness, which means, of course, that you're aware there's a lot of chatter going on in the mind, and that not everything around you is what it seems, right? There's a lot of interference bands, so to speak. We kind of know that, Michael, because there's a lot of things that can't be explained, that can be seen on camera, that can be heard on microphones. And audibly, we can't even decipher what that is, right? I remember years ago being in New Orleans, I had this remarkable experience where we were ghost hunting at the State Palace Theater, which got overflooded with Katrina. And we took a camera and moved it down the hallway, and we saw a gaslight. Now, there's no lantern there. We could go, no lantern, lantern. Oh my God, no, it was amazing, right? And then there were wisps on the floor that we couldn't see with the naked eye. So there's always things moving around us all the time that are imperceptible. So where's that coming from? Like, how is all this being channeled through us? That interesting, ooey gooey, luscious, connective energy, because it is really. And I think, when you're recognizing there's something more, you're like, well, how do I tap into that? Some of us want to be able to see ghosts or be able to connect with the dead. Now, that's a whole nother, a whole nother section.
Yeah.
But for this, we're opening up to a more divine source. Now, that exists within every being. Even your plants have this too, your animals. We are very blessed to be able to use this capacity to ignite our healing. Okay, so I remember when I was studying to become a Reiki master, and I had my hands there, and I was really charging energy, and I was feeling the vibration, and I was thinking, this is coming from an interesting place. Because I myself can't just go, oh, time to charge in, make this happen. I had to be open to it. And the more I could be open to the channel and receive, the faster it happened. So to be clear too, it's not a concept. It's not like, oh, I need to be thinking about something that's coming through and this is happening. You're not trying to instigate something. You're more open as a vessel. So where I really love this is I'm doing hypnotherapy every Thursday night. It's a little different though. It's a dreamer's mind type hypnotherapy. So I ask my students to just lie down, something you don't typically do in meditation, but in hypnotherapy, that's really important. And the more they can relax, the better and faster this works. Now, the beautiful part about this is I never know what I'm going to do until I get there. I don't pre-script. I make it a point to not have any kind of directive, except I go, maybe we'll talk about grief. Or like last night, it was compassion of the heart. And that's it. The rest of it, left to source, to divinity, right? And the beautiful part is I start coming alive as I'm talking. So I don't know what I'm going to say. And when it comes through me, I start buzzing, and I'm also getting the medicine too, which is remarkable because not only is this happening for my students, but the teacher is getting the medicine through the whole practice. So I'm getting recalibrated as I'm doing it. And I'm thinking, wow, I don't think this is what people understand, is that you don't just offer your hands or the solution or your wisdom. Like, you as a channel get that rebirthing experience every single time. It's pretty fantastic.
And so, one question I know I've got asked about when I channeled, and I'm sure you got asked a lot, is how do you keep certain energies from coming in and channeling through you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Um, You know something? I do a cleansing or a clearing of the energy first. I do like a prayer, not to any particular deity, just an openness to love. And I'm also not afraid. So I don't even really put that perception in my brain. I don't even think about, oh, something demonic could come through, because to me, that would be tapping in. I'm just very clear that what I'm going to experience is beautiful, blissful, and healing. And I feel that vibration links me. See, I think one thing that we get confused about is if we're thinking about the dark, we're also vibing toward the dark, right? But if you're
Right.
clear, if you're real clear, this is light, this is love, this is energy divine coming through me. I've never had that problem. Let's say I've never had that confrontation either. Now, it doesn't mean that I haven't witnessed it around other people, shadows, intense or dense forms. But that's the purpose of a shaman or a medicine person, right? Is to be able to recognize it and then dissolve it, right? So yes, I would say saging is beautiful. I have a tincture, bells that I use, a singing bowl, even chanting is gorgeous. You're changing your vibrational field. And then they can't enter you. It's not in the same ballpark.
And so, another question I get asked a lot about with doing energy work or channeling mediumship is how do you shield yourself from getting attachments while channeling, because you are, somewhere, some people will say, I'm not in my body, I'm somewhere else. So, how do you protect yourself while you're out of the body and someone's using it to give their messages and then return you and keep you clean, so to speak?
Mm. I use a shield. So I use it. Some people like to term this as a shield of Sophia. So I tend to think of myself, if I'm a bright, bright, bright light, darkness likes to attack. Okay. So I kind of want to create a mist around me, a little bit of a fog. So I divert it. So I'm not dimming my light on the inside. I'm keeping that bright, but it's having like a Harry Potter invisibility cloak, putting it on you. And it just, yeah, this works really well for me. So from the top down to the bottom, circling, having the shield around me. And I kind of try to like keep that even going on in my everyday life because I have a lot of that energy, very bright, sparkly. And so attachments do like to kind of gravitate toward, ooh, what's that? So that's something that I like to do. I mean, you can definitely try it. It's not hard. You just sit in a quiet space and you think, you imagine this kind of mist around you forming, like vapor. So you can still see out, they can't see in.
Right. And one of the things I think you might agree with me on that's like the quintessential key thing to everything we're talking about is your intention.
Oh, 100%.
Because you can do all the clearing work you want, all the
Mm-hmm.
shielding, but if your intention, like you were saying earlier, your mind, if you're thinking this, it's going to go there. Well, if your intention is to, oh, I'm going to do this or this while this is going on, you are in a way nullifying everything depending on your
Yeah,
intention. So you have to watch that.
yeah, I agree. There's certain, let's say there's rules and regulations even to doing this work. So first and foremost, if a person comes to me and they're like, I have a major disease, or I have cancer, or I have something, I may not be there to eradicate that because their path and their journey might be moving into understanding what that means for them. That's a process. So my intention is to light up them from the inside out, right? So whatever they need to work on, they can do that, but not to try and take away, or even to some empaths try to like take that in on themselves, which is a dangerous game. So, you know, being completely clear about your intention, you're going into a space where you're honoring whatever they're going through. You're not trying to control or dominate. You're working with someone. So I think too, the practices of mindfulness are really, really pertinent here because if you're thinking with the compassion of the heart, you're not thinking with an ego mind. And the ego mind is always going to go into some precept, need to be superior, need to advocate, need to demonstrate, need to prove something. And the heart doesn't need to do any of that. Simply shows up and does the work that's necessary. And there again, too, Michael, it's also being willing to receive, right? To be able to listen to what's coming to you during the time so that you can make those choices, right?
Right. And here's something interesting for you. I don't know if you're aware of this, but like I've started seeing like the word impossible can be also read I'm possible.
Oh,
And so
wow.
and when you said cancer, something said you need to look it up. And CER is a word. It's the common definition of it is claim, evidence, and reasoning. And so the
Wow.
word cancer can actually be now transformed to saying can claim, can evidence,
Oh,
can
beautiful.
reason. And so I was like, as I'm looking at it, I'm like, because it's like, as you were saying, I'm like, that word has a different meaning, like impossible. And so I was like, does it? And so it's interesting how, as I'm reading that, you were talking about doing the exact same thing of this may be why they have this. And
Uh-huh.
so I was like, wow, I'm looking up, reading exactly what you're saying, and I'm like, how synchronistic is that?
That's the divinity of channeling right there. Bouncing, right? We just had a moment where you were energetically harmonized with what was being expressed to go ahead and validate exactly what we were saying. Yeah.
And it's amazing, because we talk about, and the other thing with channeling that people have to be aware of is there is power behind the word. And we've always had that expression, be careful what you say, be careful what,
Oh yeah.
your words, because they have meaning, they have impact. And a lot of people now are starting to point out, how do we know our words? Well, we learn them by spelling. Well, what is spelling? It's a spell.
Oh
So
yes.
we're putting the magic to the words growing up. We're being taught that, but it doesn't register in the mind because we don't, it's like we're not focusing to that point. We're just being like told, "Oh yeah, spelling, you're determining each letter." And it's like, "Oh, okay." But that's not exactly what spelling is. And so, yeah, I mean, so there's so many things going on. And so, as you'll notice when people channel at times, they may pause and they're like, oh, we're trying to figure out how to put this concept into words. They'll say, your language for your understanding. And
Yeah.
it's because, yeah, when you're on one wavelength up here and somebody else's wavelength is here, and you're trying to relay a message,
Uh,
it doesn't flow always in perfect form. And so there is a delay from them translating
yes.
to your understanding so you can relay it here. And I think some people view it as, oh, that person's, thinking of what to say next, and
Um,
they're not really channeling. It's like, oh no, they're channeling. It's just the language is different and they have to pause to gain the translation, so to speak.
that's really true. So imagine someone who's never experienced love before, Michael. How in the world are you going to tell them what that feels like? It's going to be a moment, right? It's way up
Right.
here. Person's going, what's that? And you're going, hold on. I wish I could just download it. That would be easier. The feelings, the physiological aspects, the whole nuance, the palpable energy. But no, you have to describe what that is. So yes, and I remember too in my personal NDE when I went flying through into it was color, and every color had not just an emotion, it had a life. Every color had a life. So that to me meant that even what we consider as inanimate holds an energetic charge and a wisdom and an intelligence, right? And it was very hard to describe what that was, even now, for me to try to describe what that was like to be swimming in red, blue, yellow in the cosmos as a living, birthing being existence. Because we only know color as color, right? We
Right.
seldom know it as a vibrational field. But there again, we're talking about how to level that out. So it is complicated, especially if you're doing channeling for, let's say, higher beings. You're like actually tapping in to that space. And that higher realm is going to do its very best to describe to us what needs to be said in terms for us to register, right? But in their realm, it can be just a blink, a flicker. That language is very instantaneous. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And I absolutely, no, even listening, I don't know if you're familiar with Abraham, Esther Hicks. She's
Yes.
a channel, right? And she would just, when she starts, she's just boom, 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 going. And she's just so fast. And it's just la 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 spilling out. And there's no way that you could stop and articulate that conceptually. If you think about it, that's way too much work.
Right. And also, she's been doing it for a while, so
Yeah.
she's familiar with the lingo, so to speak. And another thing I want to point out before you go back to is, as we're talking about like higher beings or spiritual beings, imagine being like fourth or fifth density, trying to relate to someone in third density or fourth
Mhm.
density a concept, you're not going, so you got to lift them up to your level to make that connection, but then you have to go down to their level to relay that. So there's a lot of intricate, like,
Mhm.
footwork. It's almost like a dance going on behind the scenes to
Very
make this
true.
connection and to make it able to explain things and to be able to use, because let's say, for example, you're channeling a fifth dimension person. They're like, well, we don't, the concept of home eludes us because we're everywhere and nowhere at once.
Mhm.
Well, then we think, oh, you're homeless. So what wisdom could you be bringing us, about, keeping ourselves, stable and everything, because we're filtering it through a 3D
Yes.
reality versus a 5D where you're like, oh, everywhere. I don't have a home. Everywhere is home. It's
Right.
like that's where the translation sometimes gets broken because our filters translate what we hear through our experiences, and it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's not what's being related. It's not
Right.
what's being said, but you can only hear from where you're at. And
That's right.
that's where I feel like a lot of channels get disjointed because their message, you'll hear a lot of times they'll say, but that's not what I said, even though it is the words that they said
Mhm.
because of those filters.
Oh, yes, yes. It depends too on what direction. I'm going to use direction here, which place you're going. So, as you described before, having to come here, having to come here, having it back and forth, back and forth. But say you need to go into a dimension where someone says, I lost my great grandmother and I would like to have a conversation with her. So then I'm going to say that because for me, that's a drop. Not in a bad way, but it's a drop into a deceased resonance. This is harder. It is for me harder to acclimate back and forth. I get very tired when I got to dip down into that space. Not that it's bad, it's just a different vibration altogether. And so, but in healing, we're way up here. We're tipping it. And you can get, of course, you can get healing from talking to deceased people that you love. You absolutely can. It's just a different frequency. It's a different density too. And your body, you have to adjust to be an open vessel. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. For me, if I have to tap into people that are deceased, I get physically cold. I shiver. I'm like, ooh, this is, it's just my body temperature has to drop down. Something I tapped into yesterday, because I love where this is kind of segueing, is that when you were talking about everywhere is home, and we are fully in every space all the time, connected, and the hypnotherapy we were doing last night was really honing into our desire to always control everything. And I remember this moment where we were deep down on the beach, just taking in the sunset. And what was really coming through in the channel was I didn't control the surge of the water, not how the sun colors existed in the sky, and it's always different. Every single twilight is different. I didn't control what stars I saw in the sky once the dusk hit, and that's also part of being open, is to not try to control what comes through. And I think that's the keynote to real intention and then shysters per se, because you can't filter what comes through, and that might kind of be a little bit scary for some people because they'll have to say, this could just come out however it needs to come out, and I don't know what
Mhm.
it's supposed to mean, but you're gonna get it, and that's both scary and exciting. I don't mess very much with the spirit realm of the deceased because it's just taxing for me. But blessed to all the ones that can. That is beautiful. So for me, it's always light, star, seed, kind of cosmic intelligence that I feel. Afterwards, I'm actually really buzzed. I'm very
Oh yeah.
blissed out.
Oh yeah. And I remember a few times when I was channeling, because I would channel Star Race, and I couldn't tap into like the deceased realm because I just don't think that was my mission. So
Mhm.
I didn't get access. But I remember hearing every once in a while because I would be like, I don't want to remember messages because I know whatever you're saying,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not going to be able to translate and make sense of. So don't even fill my head with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would occasionally remember hearing a phrase like them, like kind of jokingly saying, "Oh, we're get please give us a moment because we're trying to get this one's mouth to relate what we're saying because it's not something he's familiar with." And so it was like, and it's like it was their way of saying like, yeah, we're trying, we're got to bypass the filter and
Yeah.
please give us a moment because
Yes.
there's no frame of reference for what we're about to say. So this, is
That's true.
hard for him to say.
Isn't that true? You're dealing with a couple of different. You're first how you can decipher it yourself without deciphering it yourself, right?
Right.
Because there's always there's a subtle apprehension that starts with goodness. What could possibly come out of me? And because some of these wisdom teachings are just very clarifying. Let's say straight to the point. And I've had that too, where I've had my students go, "Boy, you didn't waste any time. Just scalpel, you know, just take the wart right off," kind of thing. And there's quite a few other channels that do the same thing. A lot of gurus do that, whether they know they're channeling or not. But I believe that they do. They're very clear on a higher state of resonance working within them. So, and they're fully aware they're not doing it. They're
Mm.
like, this is not me. This is something bigger than myself moving through me. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, and something too that people have to be aware of, and I think even a lot of channels don't realize this, is we're bringing in people who are like, in our terms, in our frame of reference, millions of years in what
Oh,
energy they are. So, and they're taught through energy and telepathy. So to come into a body that uses vocal, they may not know how to make the vocal work. And so I always view it as a part of me stays behind to make the mechanisms work. And that's where, when they say we're trying to get, it's not necessarily maybe the, bypassing the, mental part,
mhm.
it's getting the message to go to where I can say, okay, the mouth needs to say this way, okay, and make the mouth work. It's like, wait, what are you saying? That
Oh
makes no
yeah.
sense. Wait. And it's like, yeah, because I feel like they may not know how to make our bodies work. And so part of us, stays behind to keep the body
Mhm.
working and them able to utilize it. What do you think about that?
I think that's brilliant. And then what else also comes to mind is people that sing or chant in a way that their vibration. So instead of being able to articulate with words, they do it with sound. So I've seen that too, where they just bypass the whole capacity to try to decipher, and they just go straight into vibration mode. Um, And I think that's what I understand too about some of these beautiful sound healers that sit down and they just, if they're not trying to make words or context with their words, but you are immediately transported. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I feel that, um, and that's because higher dimensional beings can do that really fast. You know, for a space for their healing, they're like, just let's go straight to sound. Let's just hit the vibration button. And that's great for people that can open up, but they do have to, like, they still have to train their vocal cords. They still have to know how to breathe through it to be able to let this come through them for that whole expression to be fully embodied, right? So there are so many vast ways to do that. Also, I think that, you know, people that work with sound bowls and tuning forks and things like that too are also channeling with which area needs attention. Um, it's fantastic. You know, I have a body worker that puts his hands on me and he's like, "You're frozen right here, just right in there." And then he's working, you know, at the whole time his body, he's sweating, he's feeling, he's having all this go through him because he's not doing massage. That's not what's happening. It's true release. And actually my body's gone through some trauma, right? And he's feeling that. So I think it can be used in so many different modalities, Michael, right?
Right.
Singing, touch, drumming, chanting, like all of that is potent healing power. And then, of course, you have philosophers, you know, like Alan Watts or Ram Dass, who are hypothetically doing lectures, but they're not really doing lectures. Like, because you are transported into a completely different space when you're listening to what they have to say. They're going digging deep. Yeah.
Yeah, and another interesting fact is I've seen this and experienced it myself to where you may not be feeling 100%, but you're like, hey, these people came, so, out of respect to them, I'll try and make the connection. But while you're channeling, your body is like, whatever was ailing you,
Oh,
it
yeah.
stops. And it's like,
Yes.
so it's like they even will go through and be like, hey, you got a cold here, or your arm isn't really functioning 100% over here. We'll temporarily fix that for you, and
Yes.
you all of a suddenly become alive like nothing is wrong, and you're perfectly fine. And then when you return, it's like, oh yeah, I'm back to the way I was. And it's like, thanks, you couldn't have left me in the healed space. but
Right. Yeah.
But that's
Right.
something too to notice is, that to me is a sign that, yeah, they are really channeling, because the body doesn't, in it like a snap of a
Mhm.
finger, go, yeah, sore throat, hard, like almost laryngitis type throat, to perfect, and then back.
Yes. I think that's the beauty in Reiki, because when people are, you know, people really do think, you know, oh, I've got these aches and pains and stuff. You know, I've been talking about that too. If you have been able to follow my own journey from cane to dancing, my own disability is, you know, I was just full of pain everywhere, swelling, and I had no idea how to shut the thing off, right? And it wasn't just one thing; it was multiple things, energetically, multiple things. So I didn't just go and do some movement. I didn't just go and eat better. There were different facets of that that worked together. And what you find, I think, when you're doing Reiki is that a person who comes in and they're like, I have no idea how this is going to change anything, or we just hope that it does, right? And from the moment they get in and they start to relax, that shifts. So there's two, let's say, two conduits of energy happening. One through the person who's doing it, the master who's doing it, and of course the recipient, right? And if the recipient isn't open, nothing's going. But what happens is the moment that the whole process is done, you know, within an hour, they go off into a sleep. They just zone out, like they're out for 15 or 20 minutes, and you just let them stay. And it's a recalibration of what's happening. And when they're coming out, what they're shocked about is that what they came in with is gone, and they can't figure out how that happened. Right? There
Right.
was no physical exertion. There was no medicines to take. There was a very clear movement up through the channel and through the person again and again and again, and tapping in. I've learned this too. It's not just about the Reiki master putting the hands on the person and making things happen. You are activating their own healing life force. You're charging that part so that it gets turned on, right? Because that's how we operate every day. I don't want to give a person one session and then in 2 years they're having this same issue where they're like, oh, I don't know how to get myself tuned in and turned on. Like, you want them to tap in and flip their own switches, so to
Right.
speak. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, as we're talking about like channeling, I know a lot of people say channelers are mediums, mediums are channelers, and I'm like, no, there is subtle differences.
Mm-hmm.
And one person defined it as a channel brings the energy into the body where the mediums leave it outside of the body. But I think another difference in actuality is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, a channel hears what's being said and relays it,
Yes.
where a medium sees what's being said and relays it.
And that can cross because that happens with me in hypnotherapy. Is I see it and I hear it, both
Okay.
coming through simultaneously. Oh, there's the picture. Oh, that's what's happening. Oh, that's the path. So because I have a high symbolic visual constitution, and it through the dreamer's mind, both are being activated. So I think you can, because that's my experience, blend those two together. It's pretty phenomenal too, because you literally are walking the journey too. I mean, inside and out. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I remember. Yeah, I don't remember seeing things, but then again, I always had the agreement that I was off hanging off in their world while they're doing their thing, and so it's like they may have been showing images, but I'm like, I'm not there to see them, so I wouldn't know. I'm like, I'm sorry, you have me in a another dimensional world. I am totally going to go explore. I am
Oh
not going to
yeah.
sit and hang out and listen to someone chatter and while like this world is unfolding around me. I'll be like, yeah, sorry guys, see you later.
Goodbye.
I'm out. Call me when you're done.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is the best. I don't know. This is the best high there is, helping other people. For me, being of service to other people. And it's not a sacrifice. That is a totally different ideology. I step into a space, and even with people that come for Tantra sessions, and that means that I first have to know where their space is, what it is they need, because we're talking embodiment here. What is it
Right.
they're struggling with, right? And through that awareness, my own switches get flipped on. Oh, that's what they need right now. And there it lands, right? So I tell people, bring a notebook and don't ask me to repeat it. I won't be able to.
Well,
you know?
yeah. And one of the fun facts that I had happen on one of my channeling sessions was because when you channel, you have to have full trust that what you're doing and what you're saying is what's happening and unfolding because otherwise the connection won't hold and so you won't be able to do it. But when I was done with one of my channeling sessions for a group of friends, a friend walked up to me and she says, I know you were just channeling because your eyes, the color of your eyes changed.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, they do that sometimes. But then I was like, yeah, but I wasn't in my body to do it. So they did it. So Okay, cool. They were, so it was like a secondary validation of, yeah, they were really in my body
Oh my
because
gosh.
that's something that you have to do from
Hmm.
within. It doesn't just happen.
That's right. Well, my eyes are typically closed during my sessions because I'm going super deep in, so I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know, but I can only assume that there are definite changes. And of course, if you've ever seen people that have done the kind of mediumship that you're talking about, where uh, ectoplasm has been expelled from a person, and their whole being is uh, part of this thing. It's remarkable. If you can think about that too, I think that's also part of our fear is if they have that much control, what else could they do?
Right.
Um, so, and I do believe, being a priestess too, that you do have to be mindful. There are all kinds of vibrational energies around you. Always, you have contrast. To your light, there is the dark, and so it's no joke to make sure that you do protect yourself, but you don't have to do it in such a way where you feel like, oh, everybody's out to get me, because then you're like a beacon for that kind of thing. But it is, when you think about it, what could be done in the healing aspect if your eye color is changing and shifting? What other things can be done? Because I've heard of people having tumors shrunk. I've heard of people having diseases completely gone. In a session, it's not uncommon for people who come after one session and go, my knee pain has disappeared, or my asthma is disappeared, or my PTSD is significantly better. For the first time in my life, I didn't have an anxiety problem. So those things are like, I didn't do that. I was just a channel to deliver that. And then you were open to receive it. So that's the beauty of it, is that I feel it is medicine. I purposely decided to not be a Western medicine doctor, or go that pathway, because energy has been my game since I was a little tiny girl. My mother had birds. I don't know if we talked about this before, but there would be birds that would fall out of the tree, and there was a very slight chance they would survive. She would say usually the mother bird often will just abandon it, or they'll be eaten by another creature. And the first thing my mother would do is put them in my hand, and she'd say, cover your hands. And I want you to warm your hands and start thinking about healing the bird. And then we would take the bird into like a little incubator, feed the bird, bring it back to life. But its first instance was keep putting that bird into your hand in between, keep holding and nurturing. And it was important what I was thinking, Michael. I had to be thinking ahead, seeing this little birdie healthy, seeing this little birdie strong, right? Growing feathers, and running that charge through my hand, through my heart, because your chakras in your hand are your heart chakras too, right here. So that's why if you hurt someone with your hand, it hurts your heart, right? It's the
Right.
same context. So, thinking about that, the hand healing, the laying on of hands, the intention, all of the stuff we're talking about is still a channeling. And that's the beauty of it. And so people can do this. I think we were talking about this in the beginning, but how to get there? First of all, I'm like a die-hard meditator. You have to be willing to observe without getting caught in your own chaos and your own stories. Oh yeah, it's going to happen. We're all human, right? But being willing to say, oh yeah, I had a human moment right there. So come back into your space. But the more you can do that, the more you open your brain for better possibilities, the easier this is. So look, you're not going to go to school and they're not going to have a checklist that says, this is how you become a channel and you do da, 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 da. They'll say, meditate, sit quietly, observe, contemplate, study with the compassion of the heart and mind, because the heart is the one source, the one mind that should be listened to 24/7. But our brain gets in the way and says it's the other way around.
Yeah, and what do you think about the theory that, people who read tarot and oracle cards, are actually channeling.
Totally. Totally. I used to read the Fairy Oracle on Jackson Square in New Orleans. And there's no like pamphlet that says swords and pentacles and this means this. That card is pure intuition. You pick it up, you sit with it, and you go, uh-huh, okay, this is what this means. You've got a lot of deception in your life going on. People don't often like being told the truth. And so
Yeah.
most people will try to sugarcoat it. But if you're really channeling with the deck, then you're oftentimes getting right into a person's because people are like, am I going to win the lottery? Am I going to fall in love? And you're like, well, the lottery is pretty, it's pretty tiny. Okay. Falling in love, if you're headed in that direction, there's a good darn chance you can. Now,
Yeah.
but you still have work to do if you want that love to be something that's maintained and going to grow, right? You come in with the same ideas, you're probably not going to be in love for very long.
Yeah, that's true. And as for the lottery, I'm like, yeah, if we could channel the lottery, you think we would be living the way that we're living?
Will I be out here doing this?
It's like, sometimes I wonder what y'all think about when you ask certain questions. It's like, you're asking someone who's at a fair about the lottery, and it's
Sure, I got
like,
the winning numbers right
you think they're gonna give you the right numbers and not, keep them for themselves? I'd like to think they would, share them, but there is still that human element of, hey, they're making a living. I'm struggling here. I should get this more than be like, hey, we're gonna siphon some of this. We'll both, play the
Yeah,
numbers. We'll both win.
that's right. That's right.
But yeah, I've had many people who are like psychics, and when somebody asks about the lottery, their response is, "Do you think I would be standing here right now if I could channel the lottery numbers?"
Oh
And
man.
everybody in the
No.
room starts laughing. But it's the truth. It's the thing that people don't realize is
Mm-hmm.
if we could manifest this in this way, then lives would be different. It wouldn't be up
Huh?
here and going, okay, yeah, oh, here you go, and the other thing too is I want people to understand, like, when you are in conversation and all of a sudden you say something and you're in your mind, you're like, where did that come from? Or
Oh
what
yeah.
is that? Or, if you watch my shows, a lot of the questions I'll ask are like, I get compliments from people saying, you ask great questions. Well, I'll be honest, a lot of the questions that I, come up with aren't here or
Oh yeah.
here. They're
Right.
from up there.
Oh yes.
And somebody pointed out to me and they said, yeah, you're channeling on your show
Of
doing those
course.
questions. And I'm like, I never thought about it that way because we create these visions of what like a channeler is or what a medium is. And so all the little nuances that we do throughout the day, we write off as something else. And it's like, no, we're actually tapped in, we're channeling.
True.
And so just to know, to, everyone out there who's, says, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. If you're having those moments like conversation where something comes out and you have no idea where that came out from, congratulations, you become a channel.
That's right. Oh gosh, yes. Mm. I think another thing too is the feelings that you get. I've noticed that as we kind of talked about that too. Like there's a higher. It's so positive. It's such a feel good frequency that buzzes through you when you're channeling. Um, that I think is the best. I think it's the best reason to keep doing the work. This the terminology being blissed out. A lot of people end up doing substances to get to the one space that's natural for us. And even
Right.
if you're not doing something like, even if you're not a master channel or whatnot, you can still tap in by being present in that field, right? Why do you think that all these people congregate to teachers like Muji Baba, or in these spaces where they're under healing modalities, right? Because they may not be there themselves, but they're tapping in. And I think the more that you do that, it's like going to the gym and making a muscle stronger. And
And,
eventually, yeah, you're there.
and I feel a disservice that some people do because I experienced this when I first learned Reiki. Was they said so Reiki is energy work, so you can only do it on other people. You can't do it on yourself. And I'm like, and when I heard that, it was like my body was like, wait, what? Huh?
Right, right.
And so I was like, okay. And so I was like, I just put it to the side. And later, I started using it and wasn't realizing that I was using it, before I even knew how to use it
Mm-hmm.
as well in life. But I think, too, something that, is different for channels is you learn it by you're doing it on yourself. Or if you have a friend who's willing to help you, then you can develop it that way. But yeah, the trick is you have to get over the mindset of I can't do it on myself because
Mm-hmm.
that is actually how you develop it and how it
Yeah.
really grows is because you're doing it to yourself and reading yourself or
Oh, yes.
getting guidance. And it's like, boom, every time you say, oh, my intuition told me this, hey, welcome to the channeling world.
Oh my
Or
gosh.
a voice, I heard a voice in my head say this, welcome to the channeling world.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
that's, that's what I mean by, we're so tuned out and, told, oh, that's not this. When in reality, it is.
Absolutely. How many times have you been guided and directed to a teacher you needed to know? Came out of thin air, right?
Right.
Just you're like, I never heard of this person before. Maybe this just dropped into my feed, or a book appeared, right? Or like with me, I had a student who said, have you ever heard of Eckhart Tolle? I was like, who? Right? And then I experienced one of the worst tragedies I had, and I had a dream, go get that book now, right? And it's
Right.
exactly what I did. That was a direct incentive. That was a tapping in. And once I started that pathway, that's never stopped. I would keep like, I would just pay attention. Michael, that's the thing. Most of the time it comes around and people just dismiss it. They go, oh, and we go, wait, slow down. Because there's relevance for the reason that those people showed up in your life. There's a
Right.
definitive message in there. There's a guidance and there's a healing in there. And if you can take that and slow down and realize there's nothing more important to do, that leads you on the path to other things, because we're all growing.
Yeah, and here's another example that I think might shock a lot of viewers is say you're driving home and you always will turn right to go home, but you all of a suddenly turn left and go a different route and go
Oh, yeah.
home and find out, oh, there was an accident along the way,
Yep.
or something happened, and could have been an accident
Yep. Your
that happened
accident.
along that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's a channeling that you
Right.
were, you know, you listened to a voice or something that told you to go the other way.
Mm-hmm.
You were channeling in that moment.
Isn't that remarkable? Many people have been like, I should take a different flight.
Yeah.
or I should take a different path, or today was the wrong day to come into work. Some of those people that experienced 9/11 felt, don't go to work that day. Just don't. And there was something, let's see, there was a beautiful story about this tsunami that hit, I think it was Thailand at once, way, way, way back when, um, oh, it was in China, actually, way back when the deities of the feminine goddess were being celebrated. And there was a handful of people that all had the same dream of a woman in white, and they were like, you need to move, leave your homes. They were leaving in droves over a dream they had. Okay, I mean, how does that happen? So that's a clear sign of how other channeling intelligence can exist within us when we're tapped in, right? They had a belief. This is something else too. They had a belief and a knowing, and they were open to love, and through that the message came that saved many lives. So it can happen taking the left turn. It can happen postponing a certain plan. And you're like, I have no idea why I did that. But that's the thing, is to be clued in to listen, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's almost like I would say, maybe 90% of the time when we say, "Oh, my intuition told me this and I followed my intuition," that was probably channeled
Yeah.
experience. I'm not going to say 100% cuz sometimes it is your intuition and your gut
Yeah. Yeah.
telling you something and it isn't channeled, but some of the times it may be. And so, the thing that I would think that it comes down to is you got to trust yourself, trust, that you are in tune with your body to know that if something resonates, go with it. If something
Yeah.
doesn't resonate, there's a reason for that and walk away.
Yeah.
And that helps so many people in everyday life, and situations could be avoided, like you could be at work and the boss is trying to entrap you in something so that he can do something that isn't above board, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start walking towards the door and you're like, something doesn't feel right, veer off and avoid it, because yeah, some things you don't want to be involved in.
Yeah.
Or it could be simple like that, or it could be somebody else could have been in there that even the boss didn't know about, and he could have had been getting ideas for later, and something could happen in another way.
Yeah.
So you never know who and what the feeling's coming from. You just have to trust, avoid it. And I'm not saying, if your boss ever calls you into your office and you don't want to go in, say no, because that'll definitely get you fired. I'm just saying, be aware of your feelings, and
Yes.
just,
Yes.
if you have to go in, just be guarded. Don't agree to anything, that you
Right.
don't feel comfortable agreeing with, and just watch yourself.
That's important. I think too, we can, with time, women can really tap into, women and men can tap into when energies are misaligned. And half the time, people act out of desperation. And, they are not clear of the red flags, which is that inner something isn't quite right. Just being able to take more time to ascertain if this feels good or not, or because you know what, no one has to jump into anything, right? And it's always, I think for us, it's learning how to tune in and trust, as you're saying, trust ourselves. Self-trust is huge, because often, of course, we don't trust other people, but it really starts at home
Right.
with us. Yes.
And one thing I'm going to say that's probably going to blow a lot of women's minds and guys' minds, because the society has taught us, when it comes to the term like intuition, we only hear of women's intuition. We never hear the male's intuition. What we hear is, well, men trust their gut
Oh, yeah.
and women have intuition. Well, newsflash, it took me 38, 40 years to figure this out. It's the same thing.
It sure is.
And so when women say, I can't operate, like a guy from the gut, guess what? You do every day.
Mm-hmm.
And when men are like, well, you have this intuition I don't have, well, guess what? You do. Your
Yes, you
gut.
do.
It's
Yes, you
your
do.
intuition. And so
Yes.
when you realize that, some of the things that, you think about that this person does that you don't aren't capable of, start becoming capable. And you start realizing, oh, I already do that.
Yeah.
And it's
True.
because our language is designed to keep us separate and
Uh-huh.
keep us divert, in like a world of diversity and separation instead of unity. We take words that mean the same thing, but they don't sound the same, so we don't think they're the same, and
Mhm.
it keeps dividing us. And it's like, nope, there is no division. And
Right.
just like, communication, men process things differently than women,
That's not a bad
but
thing.
you know if we understood how each other thinks and talked, like my mom would always say, her mother told her, you lay the cards on the table and a spade is a spade. If
Ooh.
you had that communication, you would realize, it's not as hard to communicate and understand each other, but we keep thinking from these
Uh-huh.
differing ideas and make it harder than it needs to be, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, we
And
do.
so we need to start switching to a mode of doing, the new term is called active listening, and
Oh, yeah.
hearing what they're saying and not thinking in the conversation, oh, what do I need to say next?
Right, right. Because if you're too far in your head, you're not in your heart, right? I get this. Um, it's actually not an easy process for people to stay in their body. I think we're told to not be in our body. We are given so much license to be a brainiac, get back in your thinking cap and stuff like that. But it's like your body is wise, really, really wise, because it doesn't actually really care what your thought process is. It's like, oh no, this is truth, this is hurt, this hurts. And then you have to understand why you have a pain in your arm, or why you have an ache, or why you're having so much anxiety and it's in your chest. I mean, you have to slow down, because it's always giving you signals, right, all the time. um, we do tend to think so much of him and her, black and white, and it does create a rift. We do have different ways of modalities of thinking. True, men are more linear and direct, and women are more cyclical, and we circulate the emotion. That's what we do. And so you
Yeah,
can't say, oh, women quit being so emotional. Well, that's who we are.
right.
And not to say men are not, they are, and they're totally allowed to be. But we are really, really connected. We are, when we're in utero, we're the same. We are not actually, those parts of us that become male and female don't become determined until a little bit later. So we all look exactly the same. They've even shown that like baby cats and dogs in utero look the same. It's interesting.
Yeah,
We are so much one unit. And I think that's the beauty of the channeling too, is it's not particular to its gene pool, right? It's like all are welcome.
right.
Again, everyone can play. Yes.
Yeah. And I think what I've noticed through my experiences and my observations is, when you look at, like we say everyone processes differently. There's truth to that because guys will process by saying, okay, here's the situation. Here's where the flaws were. This is where it fell apart. This is what needs to be done.
Mhm.
This is the action to fix it. Done. Got it. Learned. We're good to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Women, on the other hand, go, okay, well, this is where it fell apart. This is your part. This is my part. And
Uh-huh.
I got to figure out your part and help you with your part because then I can help my part. And as I'm doing my part, then we got to get the fix for it and, understand how do we operate the fix and how do both of us, get the same fix and on the same.
Uh-huh.
And then not only do we implement it, but we figure out how to implement. How does that plan look? How does that look?
Yeah.
And so there's so many more layers to it.
Oh, yes.
And we're like, we could be done in 2 minutes with an argument. And that's where women get so confused how we guys can be like about to be like in a fist fight and 2 minutes later be like
Hey, man.
laughing and cutting up
Yeah.
watching TV. It's because yeah, we processed it, we did our
Mhm.
work, we're good to go. We don't
Yep.
rehash it. Where I think that's the difference. A big difference I see with women is you get to the solution, but then you go back and it's like you're almost doing a double check and going, wait, did we see everything? Did we? And it's like it could take hours to go through and fix
Mhm.
something. And it's like, and I think that's what frustrates guys is we're like, we don't want to rehash.
Right.
We don't want to go back into this. And you're like, but we haven't fixed it. Yeah, we did.
We did. Yes. Yes. I think too, um, and I don't know, I hope this doesn't make a lot of women angry, but I think too that we're on the intellectual side where it's great, where we operate that way and we like to dissect and understand and recalibrate and all of that stuff. But there comes a point where we have to slow down, where we have to realize, are we too far in our heads? And what's our heart saying? Because some of this stuff is just it's monotonous ruminating. You're on the merry-go-round, and at some point I think this is why men try and slow things down and go, can I just help you fix that? Just and we're like, no, don't help me fix anything. But we do as women, we're like puzzles. Like we like to make sure this never happens again, or what did you really mean when you said that, and what kind of place was I in when you said it, and and we make this beautiful tapestry out of it, and it can be kind of exhausting for a guy, honestly, because like I said, he's very straight to the point. Let's just figure it out and be done with it and not hold on to it. But I think for women, there's a slow burn to it,
Yeah.
and
It's
so
almost like yeah, it's almost like guys do the tapestry, but we have a finished product and we're like, great, done. Check that
stamp
off the
of
list.
approval.
We're good to go. Next one.
Yes.
Where women get the tapestry and they're like, I'm not quite so sure this is the right tapestry. Let's, look a little bit more and decide on, is this right? Or, what changes can be also made now that we see this. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, that's where I think another difference is like, we see the final product, we have it. There's no need to go back and go
Yeah.
into it.
Yes.
Done. Tapestry looks great. Women are like, you can make 5 or 6 tapestries out of one situation. And it's like, and then what annoys guys, and I'm not kidding. This is what's to me is I die laughing all the time I witness this. Is you will make 6 tapestries, let's say, for a scenario, and then you go, that first one really does sum everything up, so we should go with that. And it's like guys are like going like this and going, we established that like 2 hours ago. This is
Yeah.
the issue.
Yeah.
You go through it. It's like you have several options and then decide on the one you started with. And we're like, why don't you just save yourself time and
All the
finish
trouble. I
with
know it.
the first one?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Um, Maybe it's the ride, love. Maybe it's the ride and getting there to figure out, that the first one was the best piece of all. But I mean, look at the beauty of all of that too. Is that we get so many different possibilities, don't we?
Yeah.
Through it all. It's just knowing when's a good time to stop.
Yeah,
That's the heart.
I was cracking myself up the other day because I was looking for something online, and I was looking at Amazon, and I had like five different options for this one thing that I was looking at. And I'm sitting there and I keep looking and I keep reading everything and I keep looking and I keep reading. And I go, oh my God, I was starting to act like my mother did
You did.
and being indecisive. And I just closed everything and said, okay, look up what we got. That's what I need. That's it. We're done.
Mhm.
And I was like,
Oh yeah.
oh, I was like, yeah, I started laughing that I was getting caught up in going, oh my God, I'm starting to do what she would do. And it's like, and I see the trap. And it
Oh
really is a
boy.
mental trap, in my opinion, because you're like, you have it, but then you're like, oh, wait, is there a better option? Or, oh, wait, is there one that doesn't have this issue? Oh, is there
Mhm.
one that, is better this or that? And it's like before you know it, like 20 minutes has gone by, and you're like, I should have been able to get this and be done in 2 minutes. It shouldn't have taken me 20 minutes to figure out this product and which one to order.
Yeah, that's the trap. It's a beautiful one because there's so many options now, Michael,
I
right?
know.
Oh my goodness. This one's got
And
flashing lights and it comes in 10 different colors. And, which one's going to fit the motif better and which one makes me happy and what's in the
well,
budget.
here's the comical thing. I will share with everyone. It was a sonic toothbrush. The one I had was not powering up very well. It didn't have the pressure behind it. So I was like, batteries dead. And so it's not recharging. Need a new one. I went through like five or six different brand like options and different price range. And I'm like, what am I doing? I just need an
One
electric toothbrush
sonic
that does
toothbrush.
this. It finally was like I closed it out and just redid the search and was like, this one has everything I need. It does what I need it to do. That's it. We're done. Good. Done. Moving on with the day.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes. Oh, and if we could have just channeled in that moment, could have saved us a lot of time.
I know. Like, because it's, and then what's funny is when you're going through the search, it's like you go to click on something and it goes, it's already been viewed. And you're like, oh, well, then why didn't I, pick that one? And you
Oh
open it up and
right.
you re-look at it, and then you're like, oh yeah, because of this. And then you go through and then you end up back at that one, and you're like, why do I keep defaulting back to this one?
Something is pulling you there. Yes.
But yeah, it was funny because I'm like, God, I'm starting to shop like my mother.
Well, now we see, yes, and that's not entirely bad, right?
No,
But boy, it's time consuming. Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, it was frustrating too because there would be moments where I'm like, I put this in the cart, but I didn't see it in the cart, and then I would go to select it, and it goes, you already selected this on this date, and I'm like, no, I didn't. It's not
Better
in the
remember that
cart.
one.
And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, it is in the cart now.
Oh my gosh. It's I think we're probably channeling more than we realize.
I think we do too.
Mm-hmm. I think we are, and I think gut instinct, because that's our first brain, our gut instinct is always giving us messages. I don't care if you're in the grocery store working out what's the best produce to be purchasing. Um, we are always tuning in, and I think this helps during times that are really challenging. Because I know we were talking about a lot about helping people, but when we're coming into spaces, because this happens in life a lot, like the carpet is pulled out from underneath you. Perhaps we've lost a job, or there's a movement that's happening, and there's a lot of uncertainty. And how to get into a space where you can just feel connected to the higher space, knowing everything's going to be okay. And I think that that has a lot to do with channeling as well. Being open to that medium is because a lot of the times, Michael, we can reinvent the worst case scenario a lot. And we can,
Oh,
almost be our own worst fulfilling prophecy laying into that. So being an open conduit to other possibilities that you can't yet foresee is just as important. I think that happens on an everyday basis, and people don't think about that. They hear about prayer, they hear about, things like that too, putting their faith in something. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being open to what can move through you, just knowing,
right.
pouring
And
through.
and there's also the part of, when, you hear someone saying, "Oh, if you make this change in your life, it will really heal you and it'll help you do this and this." And then when you talk to that person off stage and they're like, "Yeah, I had this chronic pain here and, or this," and your mind automatically goes to, well, this person just got done doing a talk about healing thyself. And if they can't heal themselves, why should I listen to them?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, there's that connotation too of what you're saying doesn't match
What
what
you're
you're
saying.
showing
Yes.
everyone. And
Yes.
so that causes conflict with people because they're like, wait, you're obviously not doing what you're preaching. So, how valid is
Hmm.
that? And people don't realize, well, no, that's not what's happening, but yeah, I can see why you would think that, but yeah, and so that's, the flip side of it too is, as channelers or mediums or, anyone who's, out sharing a message, we always talk about being in congruence, being in integrity, being authentic, but you also have to watch the message that you're
Hmm.
sharing, because if you're not doing it, why should other people do it? And it could
True.
be the greatest message in the world, but if you're not able to show it, people aren't going to follow it. And so that's the dilemma, I think, because I mean, like we said, when you channel, the body heals itself and is great condition for the channel. But when they leave, you may still have the sore arm, the cold may be gone, but your arm may still be sore, or, your shoulder may be back in pain, and it's like, oh crap, you know, why
Yeah.
didn't they heal that part? But at least I don't have the cold. But, and we start to wonder, well, because this didn't happen, did this really happen? Eh,
Yes, and
so
some of those
yeah,
weird, anomalies like that happened with Louise Hay, like she was, forever doing the healing work and then ended up with cancer. And you go, oh, or Dwayne Dyer. I don't know if you know his story, but here's a
yeah,
guy who was helping people for a long time, ended up with cancer, and before he died, the cancer was gone. So he didn't die from cancer. He died from like a soul contract, like his
right,
time was just done, right? So some of those things we get ideas of like, oh, well, if you're doing this work, you'll never get ill or you'll never have a problem. But look, life contracts are very interesting because they put you on a path of what you need to know and what you need to move through, right, for your own evolution. That doesn't have
right,
a thing to do with whether or not you're doing it right. So, but I get what you're saying. There are people who clearly do the work and some that don't do the work. And I think you feel the difference in that. And, I remember Salma Zadora, the first person I learned Tantra from, she actually committed suicide. This was really hard for me because I thought, if you killed yourself and the work that we do is about self-love, how am I supposed to take what you've just taught me and really, how's it supposed to have weight to it? But I had to step back and I had to feel into the possibility of what her life, what that was meaning for her, had no relevance off of the work that she was giving. None whatsoever. But it's such a blast for something like that to happen, for a teacher that you love so much to take their own life. You're like, how in the world could you ever come to that space? But she also had some other conditions that were making those things very challenging for her. So it was kind of a building up of stuff. And again, her life journey, right? Her own passing. And I actually can't sit there and hold that against her. See, because then I'm not practicing the love that she was integrating. So it's really interesting. Yeah.
It is, and it comes into a fundamental that I learned and had a hard time coming to terms with, but finally did, and man, did life change when I did, and that is truly not being attached to an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And what that looks like is, for example, doing this show. If I was attached to the outcome, I would be like freaking out. Oh my God, did we talk about this enough? Is this coming off clear enough? Are people really going to listen to this? And is this topic really, a topic that people are interested in?
Yes.
And all these stories will start coming in because you're focused on a particular outcome and avoiding another outcome. So you're playing two different scripts
Mm-hmm.
on top of each other that are in conflict of each other. So it's like you're constantly feeling stressed, constantly feeling disconnected, constantly feeling, pulled in
Yeah.
different directions. And you're like, oh my God, it stresses you out. It creates anxiety. Where if you approach it from the stance of who's going to hear this episode, is the one who needs to hear it, and those
Right.
that don't need to, when they need to, will find it. That's not being attached to the outcome. That's just stating, okay, yeah, if, the people watching it that are watching are getting what they need, great.
Yep.
If they're just watching it to watch it, that's great too. But the difference is you're not stressing over the outcome.
Correct. Yes, correct. And that's going
And,
to make it hard to be a channel when you're too far in your head thinking about how it should all be turning out.
and often I wonder, and again, this is not a medical diagnosis, this is just my observation, is a lot of people that have anxiety attacks or high anxiety, how much are they trying to please everyone around them and not
Mhm.
focus on themselves, and are getting pulled in so many directions? And that's why they're going through what they're going through. They don't necessarily need to be medicated. They just need to relook at their priorities. But again, that's just my observation. I'm not telling anybody who
Right.
has anxiety to, stop what they're doing and do this.
Right.
No.
No. I think too, it's that kind of thing because I dealt with that a long time. Um, because if we don't feel safe, we want to control things. If we're used to our world delivering an anvil from the sky, we're hyper vigilant, and being hyper vigilant causes anxiety. What's happening next? Oh, I need to control this. Oh my goodness, I hate uncertainty. It feels unsafe. So if you get back to the core root of that, is again self-trust. Can we open enough in our own understanding to go, I'm not only okay, I've always been okay. I'm going to be better than I was before, or the situation will be better than it was before, because it always seems to move in that direction if you can open to it. If you are, this happens 100% of the time. If you are weighing into worst case scenario, guess what pops up? Worst case scenario every time. So anxiety really is playing on those two hemispheres, like a tight banjo string. So breathing, pausing, being comfortable with being uncomfortable for a little bit, because depression follows anxiety. Both of them come flashing at each other because, one's depression really is that being stuck kind of in that past mode where things didn't work out right and you're worried that they won't happen again the way they should. And anxiety is the future. Oh God, so they're smashing on top of each other. But here in the center, right, that's where the divine source comes through, because this exists right now in the moment, here. And the brain will do what it's going to do with the stories. And oftentimes, Michael, we get so freaked out. We're like, okay, but look, if I'm not controlling things, how does anything get done? It does, doesn't it? I mean, you don't forget that you need to brush your teeth when your teeth are like, need to brush my teeth. You get it. If you're hungry, you eat. If you're thirsty, you drink, right? And if you need
Right.
to make a decision, you make it. So, and our world is charged in those two hemispheres all the time, depression and anxiety. I mean, I'm saying this because as a person who's a holistic worker, you would think after doing this for 2 decades that we would see a decline in both of those, and we don't. We've seen it elevate. So
Right.
we know that, but we have a deeper understanding now. We really do. We have more of awareness on what that means. We're doing more meditation mindfulness practices. Doctors are now recommending these practices as well to say this is something that you could do this non-medicated. And we suggest that you do it because it has lasting results to it. Right? Again,
And, yeah, and I'll share my personal stress, story that I had was I lost my dad and I was like, what can I do as a tribute to him? And we always enjoyed watching shows of people, talking about disclosure or, something that wasn't, mainstream thought. And I was like, he always thought, why don't you do that? And I was like, I always said to myself, that's not my field. I don't have a stake or, a familiarity with that. I don't
right.
think I could. Well, when he passed in a for a month, I was like, nope. And then one day I woke up and I was like, I'm gonna do a show. And I'm gonna try and I'm gonna do, 10 episodes, just 2 a month, test the water, put my toe in. If it makes, it makes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I was like, now I got to get guests, but who's going to trust me to come on because nobody knows my name in this field.
Oh my goodness.
So, this, I'm like, I'm going to burn. This is, doomed to fail from the get go because I'm a nobody. Nobody, I have, nobody's going to come on. And it got closer and closer to, the time I wanted to start the series. And I was like, oh my god, I only have 3 guests now. And do I start this because I don't have guests? And what happens if I don't have a guest? What am I going to do? How am I going to make this work?
Yes.
And I finally, one day, it's like something clicked in my head. And I was like, you know what? I'm stressing over nothing. If I've already told myself if this makes, great. If it doesn't, I'm okay. I
Yeah.
tried and I can hang my hat on at least I tried. And if it didn't succeed, wasn't meant to, but I at least put myself out there and tried.
Yes.
And I launched the show with only 3 guests.
Yes.
And it unfolded to having 11 episodes.
Look at
I
that.
actually ended up with an extra episode. And I was like, you know, people are, gravitating to this. And I had names that I never thought I would have on my show in the first season.
That's
And when it
awesome.
came to January, and starting, the new series for the new season for each of the shows I was working on, I sat long and hard and was like, do I just continue this series or do I start it over, with the new season and just say, hey, first season was short. And I was like, is that allowed? Is it, or, will people frown on that? Or what will people say, that this was so short versus these being so long? And I even said this publicly of, I decided to breathe in and just said, I'm using host prerogative. We're starting season 2
Good
in
for you.
January. Season 1 will just be 11 episodes. It is what it is. And we're going to start doing it this frequency. And then
Mm,
the next season, I was like, well, you know, there's more, people interested in this than I thought. Let's up the frequency. So now it's a weekly show, sometimes multiple shows a week. But I've come to terms of a space of the episodes will unfold when they will. If somebody can't make an episode, I can fill in, or I have friends that I can contact and, sub out and, be like, hey, this is who's on now. And people come and watch. And I've had many great experiences on shows and a lot of firsts on my shows for me and for the guest. And so, what I'm trying to say with this is, we can let the stress control us and keep us suppressed and keep us in a stuck atmosphere. Or we can turn around and say to the stress, you know what? Thank you for the gift you've given me. I now see this as this. And so, thank you. I no longer need to be stressing about this because this I know will unfold and happen. So,
hmm
great. And I am totally fine with that. And it just, your whole life will shift in
Yes.
that moment. It did for me. And so, it's not always easy to let go of the stress and to let go of the anxiety and everything. It's just you have to find your moment where you become aware and go, look, what I'm wanting to do is more powerful than what I'm not wanting to do. And I am totally okay with what's going to happen, whether it looks the way I want it to or not.
Right.
Done. And that's it. And then boom. And let it go and let
Yes.
it be what it's going to be. And that's the beauty of it. And I think if more people did that with everyday life scenarios, you know, how different life would be. And yes, I know, you can't, if you have a boss that has these demands, you can't, say, I can't, push this deadline off to make my life easier because the boss wants it then. He wants it then. There
That's
is no,
right.
I can, change my path, but just change how you view what's being done. Change how you
Yes.
view what the stressor is and be like, hey, you can trust the idea that comes through and put it down to paper, make a presentation around it, give it to the boss on time or early. And if he likes it, great. And if he doesn't, he's going to tell you how to fix it. So you're not starting back at square one.
Right.
You're starting from a new spot and say, okay, we got to tweak this. Thankfully, I have time to do that. He's giving me a new deadline. Make the tweak, give it to him, and he may be like, hey, I actually, think the way you had it the first time is great. Key there
Mhm.
is don't overwrite your work. Save
Yes.
it in different ways because then if he goes, oh, the way, I slept on it a couple of days and I'm actually liking the way, you first presented it. Can we go back to that? And if you say no, because I don't have it, then you're going to be in trouble because he's going to be like, well, what do you mean we can't go back to it? But if you have it saved, you're going to be like the shining star of the office because they're like, great, we don't have to spend more time on this.
Yeah.
I'll just resend you that original presentation. Boom, done.
Oh,
And
yeah.
everybody's like, great, project's done. We can enjoy the weekend.
Yes. That's true. We overthink things too much. Some people seem to think that's a good thing. Overthinking is not a good thing.
Yeah. Or underthinking
Oh,
because
that too.
they're like, and by underthinking, what I'm referring to is the adage of the boss wants it this way. I think this is better, but he's the boss, so I have to do it this way. Do it your way and present it and see what he says because
Mhm.
you never know. He may, be the type of boss that says, wow, I'm so glad you brought this to my attention because this didn't even
Sure.
come into my mind. And I think this is brilliant. Yes, let's make this happen. This will make everything so much better.
Yes,
But you never know unless you try. And
that's right.
the flip side of that, if they say no, you can't sit there and go, well, that was a waste of time. You just have to look at it as well, not this time. Maybe next time it'll work out. But at least I tried, and believe me, and when it comes around to the boss looking at changes that are going to be made, the people that move ahead that you look at and you're like, oh, this person is the kiss ass, or oh, he's, doesn't really do work. How's he getting ahead of me? Most likely is because he presents things that you don't. He speaks
Mhm.
his mind and shares his thoughts. And if they don't work, he just sets them aside, gives them what he wants, doesn't complain, and, you know, does everything where you being, stuck in your head and going, well, I'm not being appreciated. Nobody,
Oh,
you're not
yeah.
giving me time with my ideas. They're taking that idea over mine. That was a waste of my time. Well, yeah,
Mhm.
you're presenting to the company. You don't want to be, chosen, so to speak, by your words. So you got to watch that and,
Yes.
change. That's what we mean by change how you approach the projects and approach
Yes. Yes.
the atmosphere because everything is being watched and observed and taken in. And so if they see you in the meeting and you're like, you have a spark of an idea, but you stay quiet, they're going to be like, well, that person doesn't input. So they're not a team player. So we're going to, pass on that person. Where the people that speak up, even if they're bad ideas, hey, at least they're contributing.
Right.
That's
Right.
the difference. Oh, and
Yeah.
I just realized we're at an hour and 40 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
But and as I'm told I've been infamous for is this all can be tied back to channeling too, because
Mhm.
if you are a channel and you're just starting, you can't be afraid to deliver the messages you're getting, because if you're afraid how it's going to be taken, they're gonna, it's gonna be a struggle
Right.
getting that started, getting the flow, getting them, groups to come and want to talk to you because they're all gonna talk to each other and be like, "Hey, Phaedra's great. She is open. She shares. She doesn't try to control the message. This person over here, though, is afraid, and it
Yeah.
we can't really use this person because the connection is too
Mm,
much energy on us to try to make and hold.
right, right.
So they're going to be like, oh, well, then, yeah, we don't want to try that either. Let's go over here. And you're going to struggle until you let go of
Uh-huh.
that control
Hmm.
factor and the doubt factor.
It's work. You're always working on yourself. I mean, there's no such thing as channeling, and it's so simple to just dive in. I mean, you do have to get through, is this me? Is this something else? How open can I be? Is this genuine? Do I have intentions? Is there overlay to this? You don't just show up and all of a sudden there's training. We did talk about those things too, that, um, we do have to be careful. This is one of those things that where people, when you think about shamanism, which is absolutely both, the channeling and the medium, uh, both. And you are always having to check in, always having to make sure your space is secure. So there's a lot of responsibility that happens with this, but the turnout in being able to do this work is phenomenal. Okay, because it's not just like you. To me, this is a real doctrine, right? You come in, someone needs you, you can give them what comes through you. It's what they need, it's delivered. There's an impact, an immediate alignment, a shift right away, and there's an elevation between the two of you.
Right. And again, I want to touch on, when we say discernment, if you're channeling and all of a suddenly you're getting a feeling of something's not right, and they're giving a message to someone like, yeah, change the radio while you're driving because what song is on is really important and that'll help your energy and everything. Well, that energy is putting that person in harm's way, because you should never be changing radio stations and searching radio while driving. And so I would question, hey, maybe you need to pull that energy out, try again, with
Yeah,
somebody else. That
yeah.
wasn't the right energy. Whereas if you're, listening to something and you're getting a good feeling and you check in and they're like going, oh, when you're, experiencing this, take a moment, think about, where's a place where you felt truly happy.
Mm.
Hold that. Hold that memory
Oh, yeah,
and
that's what
go
they're
to
there
that
for.
place
Mhm.
when you're feeling this. That's actually beneficial. So I would say keep that energy and
Yes.
keep going with it. So that's the discernment, is you got to pay attention to if it's turning around and, harm is going to come to someone through this message. That's not a message you should, or energy you should be
Yeah,
using. They
yeah.
should never be wanting to harm anyone, let alone the person that they're talking to.
That's right.
And so that's what we mean by discernment, is trust, what you're feeling. And if something doesn't feel right, let that energy go for something else.
Yep, yep.
Don't keep it because that's who came through.
That's right. That's right. The memories are there for that reason, because sometimes we have a hard time getting to those spaces when we got a lot going on. So if you can jump, if you can do a little jump into a space. I remember a meditation, um, and it was, you imagine someone you truly love in front of you. It could be a puppy. It doesn't even have to be a human being, but something to evoke that kind of feeling. It's truly beneficial to get your alignment, your resonance in play. And then expanding on that once you tap into it, you know, it's quite beautiful. Yes.
Yes, and so I think we've covered a lot about channeling
I do
and
too.
trusting the energy and all the different aspects that lead to channeling and during channeling. So one thing though, I don't know that we've covered really, and that is when you're done channeling,
Mm,
what recommendations do you have for people to let go of that energy so it doesn't become an attachment and ground themselves to back to their normal
yeah.
energy level?
Yes. One thing that I like to do is I like to offer a space of gratitude. So I always bring my hands in prayer. You know, when I touch my forehead, which is an acknowledgement of all that's come in. You know, I hold my hands over to my mouth because that's the speech by which this dialect has come through. And then I make sure that the hands come to the heart. And I just pause in reverence. That's what I'm walking away with. It can go, it can do its thing, but I'm left with the medicine and the energy that's been inside me. I also use the bells. I'll clear the space, you know, and it's not to say the space needed clearing, but it's a kind of a sounding bell of this is final, right? So that's one thing. And you don't have to have a big bell. Some people have little bells. Some people have singing bowls. Some people just have prayer. Because even if you don't have a bell, just have prayer. But bring it in. You know, you don't have to be religious. That's not what I'm saying. It's just honoring the space that you're in and giving gratitude. And that kind of just seals the practice for you. And it's simple. It's very simple.
Yeah. And so, what advice do you have for someone who, let's say, did a channeling, say, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but then they got up and went to go run an errand because they realized the time, and then they started dinner, and now it's like 8, 9 o'clock at night, and going, oh my God, I never closed the space from the channeling. What advice
Mm-hmm.
do you have for that scenario where you're like, oh my God, is it, you know how do you close something that was created hours ago and you've been all these different places now?
So let's remember this is a responsibility. Hello, this is a responsibility in part when we channel. Listen, you wouldn't go to the toilet and forget to pull up your pants, would you?
Sometimes you might, depending on
You
what
wouldn't go
hour
into
it
public.
is.
You wouldn't go into public. You'd make sure that you pull your pants up, right? Okay,
Yeah,
because and so this is the same thing you have to relate to. If you're going to leave your pants down around your ankles, you've left yourself undone and exposed. All right. So it's as simple as making sure you pull your pants up. You do that
yeah,
by you only need a breath or two. You don't need a big elaborate a ritual. You don't. You don't. You can as simple as thank you, thank you, thank you. It is done. That's it. You know, and if you can't do that, then I'm going to say slow down in your process because channeling requires us to have that much responsibility, right? So that's what I would say. Use that symbology because you really are exposed in the worst way. By you're being left wide open, you haven't sealed the gate, and you haven't given reverence, closure, right? So pull your
right.
britches
Yep.
up.
Talk about closure. Or like, hey,
Animals are amazing.
they are. But I love that because there are a lot of times where we get caught up in the energies of what's going on and we forget to close something. So the fact of you remembering, whether it's hours, minutes, days
Yep.
later, that you can simply just go, oh, my apologies, thank
Uh-huh.
you, space is closed,
That's right.
and that's it.
That's
And
it.
you don't have to do Like you don't have to go and recreate the session and going, okay, now guys, we're here. Thank you. Goodbye. It's like those chances are they probably checked out long ago anyway.
Yeah, right?
But
Oh, I'm sure.
I doubt they're in the wings sitting there going, is this person ever going to hang up this phone?
I'll do it for you.
Yeah. They're probably like 30 seconds later. They're like, yeah, you forgot. Bye. We're
Yeah.
out. You're
End
on your own.
call.
It's like, you're on your own for what's coming your way. We're
Uh-huh.
doing our thing.
Mhm. Yes, yes. So it's not, I know that certain rituals can be very elaborate, but often what I tell people, even in the work of magic, is that you only need one thing, and that's yourself. So though in the craft we use all kinds of things like metals and incense and colors and when is the moon doing whatever, if you really are sacred in your practice, you only need yourself. That's it. If I'm in the wilderness and I need to make a spell, I'm not going, oopsie, I don't have XYZ, so I can't do it. No, I've got me. And there's enough charge inside of me to make a spell active, to use words, invocations, and conjurations. We talked about spells earlier on, right? Your words have power, and they also they have they are half of the time what comes out of my mouth, I'm surprised. I'm like, oh, I needed to know that today. Do you know what I'm saying? And they're channeling.
Right.
Sometimes you're going, whoa, that happened to me last night. I was like, that was the stuff right there.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And I will admit, doing shows, people don't realize, space is opened up to have these episodes. And a lot of times I will say, a thing at the end to kind of guide into the closing, but I always, due to time constraints, don't have time to do it. And so you'll see me just go into the outro. Well, I have an intention set with upstairs, if that's what you want to call it, or up
Yeah.
there and here, that any energies that were called in or came in due to this episode, when that outro starts or when the live stream ends, the connection ends.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yes.
it's as simple as that. And I don't have to remember to do something. I can have it, as we said, contracted to do
Hmm.
that.
Exactly.
And everybody honors that. And so it can be as simple as to say, oh, I'm going to start doing channelings on YouTube. So when the YouTube feed ends, please disconnect and go about your days or
Yeah.
what you're doing. I will go about mine. And you don't have to say it every time. You can
That's right.
have it by intention or gut for the guys to do that. And so that's another thing, another way of saying, yeah, we don't have to have the ritual. It's just that is something for ourselves. They don't need it. You can make agreements
Hmm.
and they will honor those.
That's right. Definitely. Definitely. Ah, this has been fantastic.
It has. And I just want to say, and transparency and from a place of gratitude, the way this episode unfolded, I thought was like the funniest, but yet most touching and amazing experience for me as a host was I was just, doing my normal thing. And then a message from Phaedra pops up, and I'm like, oh, we just had a show recently. I wonder, what's going on. Is she wanting an episode, copy of it, or what's going on? And she goes, "Hey, I want to know, if you're interested. I have this idea." I was like, "Well, what's the idea?" "Hey, can we do an episode around this?" And I was like, "I don't know if you'd be interested or if your audience would be interested." I was like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do this. Let's do this."
Yes.
And then we were like, "So when are you available?" Great. And so that's how it unfolded to today at this time.
Yep.
But it was, she approached me about the topic, and I've had other guests approach me about topics and being like, "Hey, I don't know if this is a fit for your show." I'm like, "Hey, you're approaching me. I will make it fit for the show." And I'm like, I'm just loving the fact that you're coming to me with this idea. And I'm like, wow, yeah, I definitely want to make it work because
Yes.
I know in my mind, I'm coming from the space of Phaedra knows a lot of people. The fact that she asked me, that's an honor. And I'm like,
Ah.
oh, I don't want to, blow this opportunity because I'm in my head thinking, oh my god, I've done hundreds of shows about this, but yet I didn't. And it's like I took a step back and was like looking at what she was wanting to bring to the table about it, and I was like, yeah, this hasn't been talked about. Yes, we definitely ought to share this. And so we worked together to how to unfold this little nugget back and forth before starting today. But yeah, I mean, the fact that like the universe guided her to come to me, and my
Mm-hmm.
guys were like, "Yes, we do this. Don't even question it." I was like, "Yeah." And I think I even surprised you, Phaedra, because I was like, "Yes." And you're like, "Okay, great." And it's like I can kind of tell the response. It's like I was feeling like you were in shock that I agreed so quickly.
Yeah, yeah, it was fantastic. I got up that morning and I really had this like I was like, I want to talk about this. I want to really get this out, And so you were like, I was like, I know the perfect person. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, and we've covered a ton in this amount of time. Yeah. So I mean, this is going to be great because I know I've had some friends that are like, "Where's it going to be airing?" When? I'm like, "You're going to get it. Don't worry. You can watch it. It'll all be good." So there's a lot of people that are going to be super excited to hear about what we've talked about today, this afternoon, because we covered a
Yeah.
ton of stuff. All of it was so relevant too. Yeah.
It was, and the beauty of it is now I feel like next time, something comes up and it's like, hey, I want to get this out. I'm like, I feel kind of honored and blessed that it's gonna be like, hey, last show I did with Michael like this, it was well received, and we had a lot of fun, and went that
Yeah.
covered a lot. So this is like the great outlet for it. Let's see if we can do it again and replicate it. And we may end up doing like a monthly check-in with Phaedra type show.
I like it. I'm down.
But as always, do follow Phaedra and I, because like this was just, popped up out of the momentary deal. So you never do know when, guests are going to pop in and topics that you're really interested in may come up. And so do like and follow our pages, because that's where we're going to share this information. And the beauty of like with Phaedra, with her work, is if it's not covered on my show, but you see my show on her side, and you may, while looking for mine, find an episode about something, and you're like, I was thinking about that the other day. And if you click on it and watch it, I'm not going to be offended that you didn't watch my episode with her. I'm more the space of that's exactly what my intention is
Mm.
you to see something on her side that you have questions about, and now you're a fan of Phaedra's and getting what you need from her. That's great. I don't have a lock and stock on you watch my show or nobody's show. I'm like, hey, yeah, this is why I present like my guests the way I do. That so my hope is you
Yes.
will go watch their stuff and start to follow them and learn from them as well, because we're all have wisdom to share and insights and experiences. And so my only hope is in doing the way that I do that it brings that. And I just realized what's going on is Wednesday, the lawn guy usually comes, but he actually came today and it's about the storm. So the dogs
Ooh.
weren't telling me, hey, the lawn guy's here.
So the alarm's going off right
Yeah,
now. I love it.
yeah. So thank you, Phaedra, for
Thank
you
you.
know bringing this to me and allowing me to be your platform to bring this out to the world.
My pleasure. Absolutely. I can't wait to do it again.
Yes, same here. And so I look forward to the next opportunity. And as always, from my heart and the heart of my shows to you, Phaedra, thank you for what you're doing for humanity.
Thank you. My
It's
pleasure.
seen, felt, heard, appreciated, and thank you for being you.
Thank you. You too, Michael. Thank you for the work that you are doing. It's absolutely fantastic. I love being on this show with you, and I love all of the goodies that you bring. They're so beautiful. I appreciate you so much.
Well, thank you. And with that, I'm going to say to everyone, as Jason just said, happy Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. Have blessed rest of the day. And we will see you next week for shows. And whenever Phaedra's shows are, if you subscribe, you'll get alerted to them, so you won't miss a thing. That's the fun of being the follower, is you get alerts, so we know when our stuff is coming out.
That's right. Yep, you guys have a great Friday.
Yes, and thank you again. And with that, I'm going to say good night and good afternoon, everyone. And if you're in an area like I am where the sky is turning really dark at this hour, be safe
Yes.
and just enjoy the solitude if you're on your own, or enjoy the company and just listen with your hearts.
Beautiful. Thank you.
And with that, we're going to say good farewell,
Good
and I'm going
night.
to start the outro so we don't get caught in an Irish goodbye.
That's right.
All right. Bye bye, everyone.
All right.